Okay, everybody, Mr. O here. I've had some requests from several of you when I sent out the questions last week about um, what you specifically needed help with, and I forwarded this document earlier in the week. I'd hoped to go over it on office hours and do it live with you guys, but nobody has decided that they need to do it that way. So hopefully this will help you out with some document sourcing practice. This is from last year's DBQ. So there are 6 documents here I'm going to go over, and this is a part that I'm seeing missing from a lot of the DBQs I think you guys are seeing, and I think some of it is you just don't think you have time to do it, and this is really a little more important than some of the other parts you're trying to bring in. When you look at your documents, you really only need to do about a 1-sentence summary. Some of you are almost repeating everything that's in the document, and you don't need to go that far on it. So you want to kind of curtail back your summary, just basically make a 1-sentence statement of what the document's about, and then go into connecting it to your thesis, to your argument, to the prompt, and also bringing in some sourcing information. Remember, the sourcing information really only needs to be from 2 documents out of the 5 you're going to have. It's always a good idea to do a third just to be on the safe side. And when we talk about sourcing, this is the criteria or what we're looking for here, okay? So we're looking for historical situation, and if I posted a video from Heimler a little earlier in the week on sourcing, or maybe it was last week, and he really says historical situation is the easiest thing, and it might be depending on how clear the document is. If you get a document, it's about European imperialism in Africa, the context is the scramble for Africa, and you just want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the big picture event that the document is dealing with. So context often is the easiest one, but it's not always. Sometimes it can be the audience. Who was this written to? Okay, and it's not usually written to students or anything like that. If it's a primary source document, oftentimes the sourcing information will tell you exactly who the document was written for. And what you have to really quickly determine is that audience important to the point I'm trying to make with the document? The purpose kind of runs along those same thing, and I'm going to do purpose and point of view out of order here, because it's what was the intention of this document? And one of the documents we did on one of the DBQ, the practice DBQs, I think it was the one for last week, the first one that was on AP Classroom, there was a document that was a speech by a governor of a province in Brazil to his legislature, and what he was really trying to get them to do, what he was trying to accomplish with that is he wanted to do something about the exploitation of the rubber trade, and I think he was trying to get his assembly to go along with that. So that's really what purpose is. What does the speaker want somebody to do? Okay, what is he expecting the person who's reading this to do with it? Okay, and then point of view goes a little bit farther. You have to look at who wrote the document and who this person is and why they wrote what they wrote. Okay, what would the author could impact what was recorded? Why is it so important that we know who this person is to do it? And it can oftentimes be a king or somebody like that. Okay, so that's kind of, again, read through these documents here, this information here, to make sure you have a decent handle on it. And again, it really only needs to be a little bit more than a sentence in this. Okay, so go that way with it. All right, so I have on this sheet, I gave you a practice document. Okay, and again, these were from last year's DBQ, and the person who created this for that I borrowed this from went with this document, more historical situation, which was okay, but when I was scoring this one, I thought the point of view was so obvious in this one. So that's kind of where I went with on this, and I'll talk about it a little bit more advanced. So this is a document that was advice given in 1500 by Muslim merchants of Calicut to the Hindu ruler of the Calicut, which is a city in India, concerning the arrival of a second Portuguese expedition to the city. And it was recorded in the history of discovery and conquest of India by the Portuguese, by Fernando Lopes de Castaneda, Portuguese historian, published in 1551. But you have to keep in mind here, okay, that he is not the author. He is simply somebody who compiled it. The advice is from the Muslim merchants to the Hindu rulers about the Portuguese expedition. Okay, you don't even need to do the document to maybe get a handle on what the point of view is here. You don't need to even read it to get the handle on the point of view is. These are Muslim merchants, and they're making a request to the ruler of their province to do something about the Portuguese showing up. Okay, so you could get purpose here because they obviously want the ruler to do something. You could talk about the audience for this is the Hindu ruler who is being appealed to do something about the Portuguese. But really it's the point of view. Okay, these guys are the local merchants. They were getting very wealthy off the trade. The Portuguese show up and they're competition. They don't want competition. So they want the local ruler to keep them out. So that is really why point of view, purpose, and audience, in my mind, are more important than what the author of this document did on the context. The context is good there, but you have to bring in a lot of information. You're not going to have that time. But if you read this real quick and you say, these guys are upset because the Portuguese are showing up and they're cutting into their business, that's really where it goes, okay? And so you could really put that in anything about they're going to appeal to the king to not let the Portuguese in, or their purpose is to get the king to not let these guys in, and their point of view is the Portuguese are costing them money. So any of those would have worked on this document, okay? Next document up, okay, is from a man named Duarte Barbosa. Okay, he is a government official employed in a Portuguese trading post on the Malabar coast, and this is a travel narrative that he published in Portugal in 1516. So first thing we know is this guy is Portuguese. He works for the Portuguese government, so he is definitely going to be pro-Portugal. Okay, so we look at this and it says the Muslims in Calicut are rich and live well. They used to control all the sea trade from that town. Indeed, if the King of Portugal had not discovered India, Malabar would already have been in the hands of the Muslims. In addition to the local Muslims, there are foreign Muslims in Calicut, such as Arabs, Persians, Gujaratis. They are great merchants and sail to all parts of the world with their goods and have their own Muslim leader who rules over them and disciplines them as necessary without the Hindu king of Calicut's meddling with them. And before the King of Portugal's discovery of the country, the Muslim traders were so numerous and powerful in the city of Calicut that the Hindus did not dare to enter into disputes with them. After the King of Portugal made himself master there, these Muslims saw that they could not defend their position there and began to leave Calicut, so that they had very few of them to remain today. Okay, so a simple one would be historical situation, okay, which I have up here on the top, and that really gets into just talking about how the Portuguese took over the trade in India, and this is part of the Portuguese trading post empire. If you wanted to go a little bit farther, you could talk about his point of view. He's a Portuguese official. Of course, he's going to speak well of the Portuguese and flatter his superiors. And he sees it as a good thing, something to brag about, okay? And he's kind of doing it, bringing it in a little bit, talking about you're bringing in some of the religious connotations and things like that by talking about the Muslims and the Portuguese against that. You have to remember that the Portuguese are trying to cut the Muslims out of the trade. Okay, so now we're into document 3, and this is an anonymous Portuguese court official's letter to King Sebastian of Portugal regarding a proposal to conclude a peace treaty and establish free trade within the Ottoman Empire in the 1560s. Okay, and that's very important. What I want you to do here is pause the video and read the document. Okay, and then I'll come back and talk about it. Okay, hopefully you took the time to read the document, maybe went over some of this. Okay, so this one has kind of, again, you could do either of the two. And remember, you only need to do one of these 4 things. You do not need to do all 4 for each one. I'm just simply trying to show you how you could do any of the 4 in each one. But remember, you only need one, so you don't need to say, you know, maybe you say, I got a good handle on purpose, so I'm going to look for documents where I can easily find the purpose of the writer. Okay, or maybe you're better at historical situations, so do that. Or maybe you think you do well with point of view or audience, whatever. Okay, pick one and do it for the document. You don't need to do all four. Okay, so this, you have to look at this one and you say, okay, this was a letter written to the Portuguese king. Okay, he's the audience. That would tell you the audience for this thing is the Portuguese king, and obviously that's going to affect how the person writes, because that's really why you have the importance of it to do it. Now, the purpose is to discourage the king, which is what I hope you got from the document, from making a treaty with the Ottomans. Okay, the author feels that it would be bad for business and probably diminish his own personal prospects. So you also got his point of view in there. So he's going to appeal to the king by telling the king that it would be bad for the king to do this, when it's really probably more likely that the author is going to be in worse shape than otherwise. So you can mingle in the point of view with it. But the biggest thing is the audience of the king is the king of Portugal, and the purpose is to discourage the king from making a trade deal with the Ottomans. Okay, and again, this would be the impact here is that you're trying to cut the Ottomans out of the trade. Okay, moving on to document 4. Okay, this one is written by the ruler of the Sultanate of Assa. And Assa is over in the East Indies, on the coast of Sumatra, if my memory serves me. Okay, it's a Muslim state on the island of Sumatra, and he's writing this to the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman I. Okay, so take a second and read this document. Pause the video and then come back and we'll talk about it. Okay. All right, so hopefully you've done that, taken the time to read. And this one, I looked at the audience, and I looked at both the audience and the purpose. And oftentimes, audience and purpose and point of view can run together. Okay, this is an appeal to the Ottoman Sultan for protection. So the Ottoman Sultan is the audience. Okay, you have to remember, the Ottoman Sultan is not only the emperor of the Ottoman Empire, but he is also the caliph of Islam, which means he's the spiritual leader of all Muslims. He's the protector of the holy places of Mecca and Medina. So he is, this is a big deal. And what the purpose of this is, he's appealing to him as a Muslim, calling on the Sultan to help protect Muslims. Okay, the Sultan is also the Caliph, as I said before, the spiritual leader, and he's the protector of the faithful. By using this approach, he's trying to show fellowship with the Sultan to try to get him onto his point of view. And again, it shows the effect of the Portuguese because it talks about how they attacked so many of the local vessels. Okay, so finally we've got document 5 here. Okay, again, written by a Muslim scholar, historian from Calicut. So again, you have a Muslim point of view on this. Okay, read the document and then come back and we'll go over the historical situation on this one. Okay, so on this one, probably the easiest thing to do is the historical situation. You're basically just going to talk about how when the Portuguese arrived in the Indian Ocean, they took over the trade by force. They instituted this pass system that he mentions in here that allowed them to seize cargo of any ship that didn't have that pass. And in this way, they used force to become the dominant player in the region. So that really ties it in with the prompt there of how the Portuguese affected the Indian Ocean trade. And then finally, we have a document, and this is the one that I thought was the most interesting, and I saw last year when I did at the reading that a lot of people just totally missed this one. Okay, it was from a Venetian trader. Okay, Cesare Federici, published in Venice in 1587. Take a second and read this document, and then come back and we'll go over the things on the bottom because you really need to read to get it. All right, so hopefully you've done that. And this one is, in my mind, the point of view was pretty simple on this one. There were other things there, but you have to just look at it. Venetian trader talking about the Portuguese merchant. What is he? Just like the Muslims in the first document, he sees the Portuguese as competitors. So his point of view is as a competitor to the Portuguese in the pepper trade in this case, but just in trade in general. Okay, he's competing against them, and he really kind of mocks the Portuguese out because they get the cheapest stuff, but it's also green and in his mind full of filth. His motivation is to get people to buy his stuff. So even though the Portuguese pepper is cheaper, he says it's crap and they shouldn't be buying it. All right, so hopefully this gives you a little bit more of a view into how to just figure this out. And a lot of it is when you read the document, you just got to say, okay, why is this person saying this? Why is it important who they're writing to? That's really going to get you where you're going. Or maybe you just say, I can't figure that part out, but what's going on in this? What's the bigger context? And remember that the context for the document is what is going on in the now of the document. It's not what came before, it's what's happening during the time frame of the document. Okay, so hopefully that helps you a lot. I'm going to create another video just to talk about the actual going through the essay itself and how to budget your time a little bit. Okay, so look for that one a little later.